So we steam bent those stems, and I'm just going to take the clamps off and see if they're going to hold the shape or not. Hopefully they do.
Hopefully they do.
So far it's not looking promising. I expect them to spring back some. So in theory you're supposed to overbend them a bit. But I didn't do the forms before I did that.
So they sprang back a bit.
They sprang back a little bit, but they still have a pretty good curve to them. And that's pretty good. I'm going to touch my stem. Yep. Okay, we have the stems in place and glued in. We cut the end down here to fit the notch. Put them in, glued that end, and now Dave is going to drive in a dowel to secure that joint. So we notched the ends of the stems to fit the keel stringer in, and now we're going to glue the keel stringer into place.
Alright, you're on.
We're steaming the first rib here, going to bend it into place. We've been steaming it for 15 minutes. We steamed the first one for 2 and it broke, so we figured 15 minutes was the next
That's a good
step. There you go. Yep.
Got it.
Alright. Now, I'm going to hold that keel stringer down.
Yep.
Yep, that's good. Alright, slowly. Up and bummer.
Yeah.
Alright.
I think it's going to work.
Alright. Yeah. Yeah.
Looks pretty promising, guys.
Yeah. Given all the success we've had lately, I think.
You're looking good.
Oh no. Oh, sorry.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Okay, so we figured out what was going wrong. We hadn't soaked the wood, and apparently that makes all the difference. So we soaked the wood for about a week, which I think is excessive, but we had a week. So it soaked. We revamped our steam box a little bit. We figured out how to close the end off. Apparently just a tuna can lid, or just a tuna can is enough to close this, seal this end. And Dave brought a gasoline can, which looks a little bit odd to be sitting on the stove. But there you go. And now all it's taking is about a minute and a half to steam them enough to make it work. So it's working. It's working. Minute and a half. It's going super smooth. And it is hot. So today we are sanding down the stringers before we put them on. So we're starting here, sanding them down with a hand sander. And then over here Dave is just taking off the edges with a handheld block plane just to round the edges out. She's starting to look like a boat. So we bent the first ribs in, the last one here, the middle rib, and the last one at the other end. And we put all the stringers on, tied them in place, and then we started bending in ribs to fill the rest of the space in. The problem we had is that we broke a lot of ribs, and now I'm out of rib stock, so I have to go mill some more. Alright, I went down to the shop, I milled more rib stock, and now I have to sand all this down again so that we can break some more ribs. The ribs are ready, and now I'm just going to soak them overnight. And I made this little tarp setup here just as a makeshift tub. Just going to fill it up with water and soak them overnight. Alright, we've got all the ribs bent in, and with my friend John's help, we've lashed all the joints between the ribs and the stringers using wax nylon thread or fake sinew. And now we're going through and we're pinning each rib to the gunnels. The next step is to lash and pin all the stringers to the stems. We've got the canoe down off the sawhorses, and we're on to putting seats in. We've installed a couple of little risers here, doweled and lashed in, and made a few seats just out of a cedar 1x8, and that's just going to sit right in there. And those are going to be lashed in and just held up by those risers. And that's it, and it'll look like that when it's done. The seats are on. We steam bent in a few inwales, pegged and lashed them to the gunnels. And next step is to take this center thwart and shape it down and then install that. Center thwart is in, and now we're oiling the boat so it'll go from this nice light color to this nice dark color. And I'm just using this boiled linseed oil and an old rag. Put the nylon skin on the frame. We're just using a 12-ounce nylon, pinned it into place onto the frame, getting ready to sew. Just using a pencil to mark a line around the whole edge of the cloth, about an inch or two away from where I want the seam to be, so that I have room to roll it over a cord. Now that we've cut into our cloth and we've got it trimmed out, we just need to seal the edges so they don't fray. Just going to use this butane torch and seal the edges very carefully. Alright, it is now dark. I've sewed the other half, and now we're on to the other end with my trusty Cousin Aaron. Quite the seamster here, and we've got a piece of cord that we're using as what do you call it? Batting? I don't know. Piping, coping, piping. Some upholstery term. I'm not an upholsterer, but there's a piece of cord running up here on this side. It turns back around and comes back down this side.
We're making a canoe.
All right, it's the next morning. Sewing this seam and that seam took like 8 hours because I don't know what I'm doing. So
Looking good, baby.
The morning after.
The morning after.
The morning after.
We're putting the rub strips on now, and there's a little cord that we're catching in the fabric that's going to be sandwiched in between here that will pull against the rub strip and keep the canvas on the boat. But it's getting there.
This is a screw.
The nylon will shrink a little bit when it's wet, so by hosing it down, it'll shrink the skin up until it's drum tight over all the frame. That's it. She's got a coat of polyurethane on the cloth. All the woodwork is done. It's oiled, and that's a boat. I would like to thank Jessica, my special lady friend, all of my friends that helped out with it, Dr. Dave, John Fan, Sam, VJ, my brother Aaron, Jeremy Covert, Chris Price, Pete Lane, all my friends back home. And it just goes to show that with a few $100, a friend with a table saw, and a lot of other friends and various tools, you too can build a boat.